Good evening, Commanders, and welcome to this very special Season 2 premiere of Algorab AM. I am your host, Commander IFlippaDaSwitch, and this is your one-stop shop for everything going on in Sidewinder Syndicate, Forbes Terminal, the Algorab system, Elite Dangerous, and everything the great big universe has to offer. So, this episode is going to be focusing a little bit more on some folks in the, let's say, content creation side of Elite Dangerous. Obviously, if you listen to this podcast, you like Elite Dangerous. And if you're one of those people, much like me, that spends a lot more time watching Twitch than they do TV, then you've seen a lot of people in the content creation space there. And one of my favorites is a very special commander that goes by the name of BossLadyB. Boss Lady is, for lack of a better word, a ray of sunshine in what could otherwise be considered a very, very drab universe. I love jumping into her streams. I love watching how she engages with her community. And I love just the way she approaches Elite Dangerous. It's very much a, hey, let's get some friends together and go do something fun, help people progress in areas they want to progress in and things like that. I don't want to talk too much on that point there because I feel like the interview speaks for itself. So we do have that lined up for you, as well as your Season 2 premiere of Switch in Space, which I'm personally very excited for and very proud of the team for working on this. It has been an awesome break over the holidays. It's been a lot of fun. So we are going to start out this episode with Switch in Space and then roll ourselves directly into our interview with the one and only BossLadyB. So sit down, buckle up, throw on your headphones, and let's get to it.
Try the spanner.
There we go. All right. All tightened. What's next?
We just need to reassemble the outer housing.
Screwdriver?
Switch, really? You know I don't have hands.
Oh, right. There it is. Give it. Okay. All right. I think we're good to give it a try. Oh, man. Maker, I hope this works.
So how do we do?
Nope, that is still definitely oil.
I know you have fixed coffee maker as the number one most important task of the day, but I really think we should try figuring out how the FSD works so we can get home.
Yeah, Jenny, you're right. But mark my words, coffee maker, this isn't over. Not by a long shot.
Why is fixing this coffee maker so important to you, Switch? We have over 13 different malfunctioning modules and parts of this ship. Shouldn't we focus on things that'll get us home?
Jenny, I understand that since you don't have taste buds, a circadian rhythm, or any mechanism to suffer from, like caffeine withdrawal, you would think this was a really low priority task. But I assure you, this might be the most important part of the ship we can fix in order to save my sanity and to stop these damned caffeine headaches. So, Jenny, just out of curiosity, who designed you? I had a look at your CPU while you're offline, and it's like nothing I've ever seen before. You're very advanced, I guess is the word. More advanced than any other Kovas I've ever encountered.
You did what? That is such an invasion of privacy. I feel so violated.
What? No, I mean, look, it wasn't like that. I am so sorry. I didn't know.
I'm just messing with you. Still not an actual person. To answer your question, I am unaware of my designer. Nor do I know why I was built. My first memories after activation of when you brought me online for the first time. Also, looking is free, but touching will cost you.
Oh, okay. Wait, what?
Theogily had never activated me before you stole...
Borrowed
the ship. As far as I can tell, I was designed specifically with the intention of time travel. But to what need, I'm not sure. Considering the vast options time travel allows for the purpose is impossible to ascertain without asking Theogily himself.
Anyway, it would really help if we knew how you were created. I just don't know enough about temporal, metricated, and longitudinal time severances to really understand all this.
None of those are time-related theories, or even words.
My point exactly. I'm flying blind here. I'm a radio DJ and a part-time smuggler, Jenny. We're so far out of my element, we may as well invent a new periodic table.
Switch!
It wasn't me this time. That sounded a lot like a mining charge.
That's affirmative, Switch. I'm detecting one Type 7 mining vessel 800 meters ahead of us. No weapons I can detect.
Wait, what if it's some super futuristic Type 7 that's piloted by robots that are bent on the destruction of humanity? I'm just a squishy human. You'll vouch for me, right?
What are you talking about? It's just a miner.
Radio DJ! I don't know time stuff or complex physics things.
I'm attempting to get their attention. Taking us closer. Besides, the robot uprising doesn't happen for another 300 years. And it happens so fast, you'll never feel a thing.
Really?
Switch, I think they see us. Let's hope they're not aggressive.
Or death bots.
Hello? This is Commander IFlippaDaSwitch. How's it going? Hello? Hello there. Can you hear me?
Okay, well, he doesn't sound like a death bot. Hi there. Odd question for you. What year is it? All right, and here we are with the first episode of Season 2 of Algorab AM, and I'm very excited to welcome to the podcast the one, the only, BossLadyB. Boss Lady, thank you very much for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me, and I get to be the first one on Season 2. I'm honored. Thank you very much for having me here.
I mean, you know, there was actually a point where we were debating on whether we were going to still do interviews, and it was one of those things where, because Elite is really held up on the pillars of the community, the different names we'll say that are out there in the community, it just didn't feel right to not include personalities in the second season of the podcast. We were very much going to lean more in a narrative focused direction, I guess we would say. But I was like, no, you know what? There are a lot of cool people playing this game, and I want to talk with cool people about a cool game. And so, I was just sitting in your stream one day, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ask her. Nothing venture, nothing gain. And luckily, you were kind enough to give us some of your time, and so here we are.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to some of the questions you have, both kind of the softball ones and the hardball questions.
Well, luckily for the greater podcasting world, my pitching arm is terrible, so these are all going to be softballs today.
Excellent.
So what I wanted to start out with is, kind of the basic get to know a commander questions, but how long have you been playing Elite, and what is it that brought you to Elite?
That's a really good question. So I started playing when Elite Dangerous was released, so when it came out of beta, and I think that was 2015, somewhere in there. And the reason I picked it up was actually a friend of mine had been keeping an eye on the Kickstarter and had been really interested in it, thought I would like it, and bought me a copy. So I got started on it, and I actually was using my work computer at the time to play because my own computer couldn't handle it. And I actually had to build a computer to play Elite Dangerous on. Wow. And yeah, and of course I got a second account. And then about a little ways into Horizons, I took a long break because I had gotten into a bit of a a contest with my friends to go out to Saturday and back. And I was always the miner and explorer of the group, which wasn't really the easiest thing to be at the time.
Yeah.
And they were going to go to Saturday, and I was like, no, you can't take that from me. Like, I'm going to be the first one. I'm a little bit competitive. I was like, I'm going to be the first one there. And they both had anacondas, and I only had an asp. And so it was such a intense push to get out there, and then just dragging my butt back to the bubble. It kind of made me need to take a break after that. So I took about 2 or 3 years off and missed a lot of the really cool events that happened, like Distant Worlds 2. And then I just kind of fell back into it about a year and a half ago. So kind of on both ends, about 3,000 hours played, something like that.
Wow, geez. Like I sit there and I look at my time played. I'm at like just shy of 1,200 hours. And it's funny because Elite is definitely my most played game.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I talk to other commanders, they're like, oh yeah, I got like, 3,000, 4,000 hours in the game. I'm just like, oh my God.
Right?
But for me though, it definitely is that whole, time you enjoy wasting isn't wasted time mentality. Because I have definitely spent way longer than I should have on games that I was not enjoying nearly as much. So the way I see it, the time commitment dividends are there.
Yeah, and I like that about it, that things aren't super easy to do. Like getting an anaconda back in the day took time and it took effort. And then it really made it feel like, oh my goodness, I have an anaconda. Or, right now having a fully engineered ship, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. And once you get that fully, grade 5, everything finished, and you're just like, yes, this took me weeks or months or however long it takes to get that done. It makes it worth achieving in a way.
On a similar vein though, of what you're talking about with the exploration, right before the Christmas break, I was like, I'm going to go to Beagle Point before Christmas break. And I did that and I was like, great, I'm never doing this again. I checked it off my personal bucket list, and then I suicided back to Colonia, and then I went the rest of the way. I was like, nope, never doing this again.
Yeah, I mean, when I did my exploration, it was before Neutron Highway 2, and I've done the trip out to Colonia like, I want to say 4 times now since Colonia is a thing. And every time I've done it, the last couple times have been for someone else's charity stream. And I'm like, okay, I have to be there by this time. I'm watching the charity stream, like jump faster, jump faster, jump faster. And I always get out there and I'm like, oh, why did I do this to myself? Like exploration can be so much fun. And you can actually, if you're taking your time and there's no pressure and there's nowhere to be. But what happens every time I do that is every Friday we do Finance Friday. And so every time I'm out there, it always seems to be on like a Thursday. And I'm like, oh, God, I have to be back in the bubble. Like I have places to be. I can't be out here.
I have mining to do.
Yeah, I have mining to do. I have people to see. We have this whole complex system of how I, have to wing people in, and I can't just hand that off to someone else because they don't have all those contacts. I'm like, So it's actually why I created a new account for just exploration. And I know a lot of commanders do that because it's one of those things where you want it to just be chill. You pick it up a little bit here and there, you wander, there's no pressure. It's like going on a road trip. If you have to be somewhere by a certain time,
it takes
the fun out of it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when you can just kind of wander and find new discoveries and things like that, that's the fun of exploration. But
yeah, I told myself once because the trip to Beagle Point pushed me to Elite in exploration, and then I'd already made Trade Elite. So I told myself, once I get my triple elite, I'm just going to go out in the black and I'm never going to come back. Like I'm just going to go out there. Cause at that point, unless it's just going to see cool things, then, like what else am I really doing aside from like literally just hanging out with my friends in Discord and flying spaceships? So I'm like, I'll just go out there for a little while, like maybe pull a Commander Picard and just go out for a year and just see what happens. But
yeah, that would be really fun. I know it's kind of an interesting thing with Elite because it is an MMO, but if you don't get into the community, which I'm glad you did, like the first go round, I wasn't really connected into the Elite community. I didn't even really read the Galnet articles. Power Play had just kind of rolled out a little bit, and it was a whole different experience.
Completely.
Oh, God. I don't think many people do.
No. There are people that claim to be Power Play experts, and I'm like, that's a fake degree. Like you got that degree online.
Yeah, that was definitely an online degree from let's see, who would be the one that did, probably the pirate. You know, he was selling those degrees on
Yuri Grum's just
Yuri was like, here,
I got
diplomas
and putting them in the mail.
Yes, exactly. But the community is so cool, and what I love about the whole community is that there's so many different niches and that people find their tribe. And since I've been part of the greater Elite community, it's just kept me in it because, you know, there's been times where, because I am a miner, I've always been a miner before Collector Olympics existed. It sucked. You had to hand scoop all the fragments, and it took a long time. And so I love mining. I love mining in Minecraft. I just love that farming feel of being productive. I love trucking too and trade and things like that, and just kind of relaxing, but money-making activity.
Yeah, I mean, they are like there's like a very relaxing Zen thing to it. So I guess that answers my second question of what your favorite activity in the game is. I imagine it's it's mining, and that's cool. Like so the last 4 days on stream, except for today, I was out in a mining party. Before, all my mining ventures had been solo, and I was like, oh gosh. But when you're out there with a couple people and, you know, you're all just hanging out and you're, you know, just chewing the rag on Discord and sitting there lasering rocks and, you know, blowing up cores and stuff like that. Like, well, one, the time flies, and two, you make a lot more money. So it's like, all right, well, I mean, I'm never going solo mining ever again. So I can definitely see where you'd be like, no, let's just go out and let's go blast some rocks for a little while and just hang out and have a good time.
Right, exactly. And wing binding has totally ruined solo mining for me too. Like I guess cores, sometimes I'll go out core mining every now and then, but the group mining experience is just so awesome because it's kind of that like Taco Tuesday or happy hour. Everybody just gets together, hangs out. You're being productive, but you're not, it's not a task you have to really be highly focused on.
Yeah.
And you can just be kind of hitting the lasers, moving along, the pirate comes in, someone blows them up. It's kind of just this very chill atmosphere where people get to hang out and spend time with each other in game. And that's the one thing for me that is a little bit missing. And I know a lot of people talk about it, and it usually comes up around open versus private group versus solo. But the world of Elite is a vast world. And so coming across other commanders just randomly, if you don't have that connection to either Twitch or Reddit or YouTube, there's really not a organic way to kind of run into other commanders other than just that chance encounter. And that's the thing that I really love about PUBG or other multiplayer games, is that you have that chance to randomly meet some new people and then hang out with them and meet someone new and hang out with them and kind of create this in-game community.
So I hadn't really thought about that. Like once I became a part of a squadron, I really was focusing on a lot of things. Well, it's the whole reason why this podcast exists actually, is because I was with the squadron for a couple weeks, and I was like, this is a really cool group of folks. Cause like, it was instantly that thing of like, I came into the squadron and I started asking what I thought were dumb questions, and there were people practically falling all over themselves to like help me out. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then, a lot of people helped me out with a lot of different stuff. And then, getting my first like properly engineered combat ship and everything, and then going out and like doing wing massacre missions as a group and doing all that together and everything. And I was just like, man, this is like a lot of fun. And so, like I said, that's kind of how this podcast came to be. But like, it's not very often that I'm in open and I see someone that doesn't have Sidewinder Syndicate next to their name, and I don't like feel a little on edge. I'm like, ooh, what nefarious things is this person going to want to do? Because if it's one thing that I have definitely learned playing Elite, is that there are a lot of people out there that really just want to interdict you and just blow you up just for the memes and then move on. And it's like, why? Like I one time I was trying to get some money together for something. I can't remember what. And I was just doing some loops in my Type 9 and just getting a couple 100 million. And I was like, all right, sweet. This will be enough. I think I was going to buy a ship and outfit it. I can't remember. Anyway, I'm going back and forth and I get pulled out of Super Cruise and I thought it was just an NPC. And I was like, whatever.
Oh, no.
Excuse me. I was like, I can fly this Type 9, no problem. I get away from this NPC. And then it was not an NPC, and I was like, "Oh no!" So I'm in this unshielded Type 9.
Oh no!
And I was like, "Hey man, I'm not carrying anything, so if you wanted my cargo, like, sorry." And he just started blasting me, and in my head, I was like, "You knew." I was like, "You 100% knew I had nothing on me." I was like, otherwise, you would have at least, asked for part of my cargo or said something along those lines. So I would have jettisoned some cargo and you'd have collected it up. All you wanted to do was blow me up. And the dude blew me up and just went about his day. And I was like, what? So like,
it's so confusing. Yeah, it's one of those things. I had the same thing happen. It was probably maybe a couple weeks into coming back to Elite. I'd completely forgotten open versus private group for the solo. I hadn't even thought about it, right?
Yeah.
I was in open, someone dropped in, they're like, "Hey, you in open?" And I was like, "Yeah." And 2 hours later, I get interdicted. I'm like, "Yeah, whatever, it's an NPC, no biggie," right? And I'm in a completely unengineered Python, and it was like 2 seconds from being dropped out to dead, and I was just, I couldn't understand. I was just like, "What? Wait." And then it dawned on me and I saw the kill screen. I was like, "Oh."
You have that moment, you're like, what did I do wrong?
Right? I'm like, this is not the way it should be. It should, NPCs are not that overpowered. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it makes sense now. And I know that there is there's quite a big community of people who really enjoy that gameplay loop. But personally, I'm just like, I don't understand it, but it creates kind of a fun counterculture where I like to interdict newer players and drop whatever the most expensive mineral or metal on them is. And so if Muscovite's the thing, go core mining for a bit, get maybe 10. I don't want too much just in case I die. I don't want to be like, oh man. But now with fleet carriers, we can actually just store it, and then I'll go find them, and if they have collector limpets, or I'll walk them through how to scoop it. That's the hardest part. And then just be like, "Here you go. Here's $1 million.
Yeah.
See you later.
Have a nice day. Bye." And they're just
be careful about flying in open.
Yeah. It's like the person that walking around New York City or Chicago, and they see somebody that you can tell just came off the bus from Iowa, and it's like, oh man, you walk up and you're like, "Listen, kid, here's $10. Get off the street. Just go away. Just go somewhere."
Yep, exactly. And it's been kind of fun, but it definitely is a really interesting community, especially between the game itself and the developer company. And I feel like there's a lot of tension between the player base and the developer company, which I think is there to some respect in all games. I mean, I played through PUBG when it was buggy as all get out. So, we kind of had the whole thing of that's just PUBG, oh, look, there's a flying car or something like that.
I too played PUBG when it first came out because I was like, "Oh, what's a battle royale?" And then I was playing it and I was like, "This is dope." I played it quite a bit when it first came out.
Yep. And I kind of miss the bugs, there were some really funny ones that would happen.
There was, I can't remember what it was. It would be the thing where you would get a gun and then you'd put a bunch of attachments on it, and then your avatar, it would just be a bunch of floating attachments around you.
Yes.
Your optic would be over on one side, and if you had a suppressor, it'd be down to your left, and you're like, "What is this mess? What is going on?" And nothing could fix it. It was 2 weeks. No, it was a week where your gun would just be broken if you put a certain combination of attachments on it. And I was like, "What is this game?"
Right? Or there was this funny one that actually was around for a while where someone's kit would be like ghosting behind them. So you'd be running along and you just see these like floating guns and you'd be like, what is that? And you'd be, oh, someone came through here like, probably like 2 minutes ago because their guns are still in the, like floating in the air, like they were here.
It's like the Invisible Man run through here.
Yeah, exactly. It was really cool. And I mean, there are some things like that in Elite, but it's most of the time, it's a pretty finished game, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, the game has a lot going for it as far as like just levels of polish. And I mean, are there things that I wish they would do differently? Of course. Like as a player, and that's one of the things I think that people don't give developers, especially FDev, enough credit for, is like they can only test the things that they make and implement into the game so much. And then when you have, 1 million people playing the game and they're utilizing those systems over and over again, something's going to break, or they're going to find some kind of exploit. Something's going to happen where it's just it's not going to work as intended, and you're not going to fix it. And on the inverse of that, though, when it comes to stuff like mining, right? I don't know why they were like, oh, we're going to drop the value of everything else except for Paynite. And then suddenly they're like, man, why is everybody just mining Paynite nonstop? It's like, well, it's the only way to make money. Like, what did you want us to do? I got space kids to feed, for crying out loud. Like, I got stuff going on. You know how much it takes to maintain this freaking fleet carrier? It's not cheap.
Right. I didn't even think about it when they did the whole rebalancing, but I'm kind of looking over. I've never done Thargoid hunting or anything like that. I'm kind of neutral as far as the Thargoids go, but I'm looking over at Soldier Sailor's awesome. And he was talking about how he did the whole mining rush, like, oh, we're not going to have any money. I have to mine. And now he's like one of the top Thargoid guys, and he makes just hand over fist all this credits. And I'm like, damn, I might have to get into the Thargoid business, because I was thinking about it. When I first bought the fleet carrier, I was like, well, this isn't too bad. It's just, maybe one run of mining, or, half a run of mining, and I've paid for it for the week. And now I'm kind of like, well, it's kind of a deficit now.
Yeah. You're like, or I could, go and take out a couple interceptors and it's paid for the year.
Right, exactly. It's like, So the rebalancing has made me think and go, well, it is. I'm glad that everything does kind of now have the more risk, the more reward, and all of that. And, I mean, I remember when you couldn't even make 1 million and how hard that was. So I'm glad there is kind of a nice balance now. But as a miner, I'm like, can we just go back to like, the 1.9 million per ton price? That was great.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And that's why, like, I'm glad I got my money when I was doing that Tradium loop when I did. Because if I hadn't, I would still, like, I talk to guys in my squadron now that are fairly new to the game, new to the squadron. And one guy that we were mining with, all he has is a Python. He got a bunch of different ships and was doing different stuff and got himself to the point to where now he's got his Python and it's pretty well outfitted, and we're just helping him grind some cash now. And it's just funny because, like, I'm over here in my Federal Corvette, my second Federal Corvette that I bought, I just happened to build out into a miner because I was like, I want it to be a little nimble in the asteroid fields. And then my editor, Monohive, he's part of the squadron. So he comes out with us and he's flying around in his Type 10, in his Type 9. And he's got, 1,000 limpets flying out there collecting everything up. And then our friend Phil P's out here in his cutter and he's got 12 limpets scooping everything up. And we're just sitting here making all this money. And here's this guy in his Python with 3 limpets. Just take your time, man. It's okay. Just don't worry about it. We'll loosen up some rocks for you for when you get over here, Because otherwise I'd be at that point, you know what I mean? Like,
right. Yep.
There was still, when I first started, there was still a bit of a grind as far as getting your cash to the point to where it's like, okay, do I want to buy this ship? Do I not want to buy this ship? I don't really have to think about it much anymore. But yeah, I do. I understand what you're saying though, where there was definitely a point where you're like, man, I would really like some of those mining, some of that mining payout to come back the way it did.
Yeah, and it's all finding the new things, and I do like that exploration, at least as a newer commander, is a little bit easier. Getting that first 250,000 credits is hard, but then once you do that, a water world or an Earth-like is like 1 million if you map it, and it's just like that's pretty decent money, and all you're doing is flying around and shooting some probes at some planets, and it's not too bad.
Yep, you get to go see some pretty things, and you get to make a little cash doing it. Some people would kill to have that job.
Right?
Yeah.
Can we do that in IRL? Can we just go out exploring and
they're called travel agents. They don't make nearly as much.
Right. Yeah. That's very true.
One thing it's actually cool that you brought up the whole like money making rebalance, because I'm definitely glad that there's more of a payout now for combat than there was before, because I was still just kind of doing combat because I just wanted to get my elite. And it's like, how many thousands of ships do I got to blow up? All right, whatever, let's get to work. And so I would just, go to CZs or do missions or just go hang out in a Haz-Res with a bunch of my friends and be like, that's a pirate. And we'd all run him down, But,
who tagged him first?
Yeah, that's what it would get funny sometimes, because we'd be out in the Haz-Res, it'd be really slow. And we'd just be sitting there and like, suddenly this random Python pops in. It's like, scan him, and get him. And then the dude just gets melted by 4 other ships. And it's like, all right, well, that happened. But now that there's been a bit of a rebalance, it's nice to know that like you can still make a decent amount of cash. You know what I mean? You don't have to sit there and be like, all right, I'm going to be in this Haz-Res for 3 days and I might make, 20 million. Who knows? Like now you can make anywhere between 10 to 20 million in a couple hours doing CZs or Haz-Res. So it's actually really nice that they did that rebalance. It sucks it affected other things, but as a guy who legitimately enjoys combat, I'm happy about it.
Yeah, it is really nice. And it kind of brings that piece back where I remember sitting there and seeing like an elite anaconda drop in, and it's like, oh my goodness. One, that thing is going to be hard to take on in like an asp and just pythons. And then, there was that, the payout's going to be so great, and then there is that piece where it brings that back. Whereas before it was because of mining, it was so out of balance that people were like, that's, pity little pennies, just to do that. And
yeah. It is funny though. Like we made a joke a couple of nights ago. It's like, man, for the amount of money that you're making doing some of this stuff, $100,000 doesn't seem like that much. And I was like, yeah, it's because a loaf of bread is like 50,000 credits. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, man, super inflation. I was like, you think you're a billionaire. In reality though, it's the equivalent of making like $35,000 a year in the States. Not that much. And he was like, that's the first thing to think about. And I was like, inflation, man, that's the economy. Sorry.
Right. And that's what I talk about when I do the Lady in Red series. Is I always talk about that and say, think about the population of these systems. Because in a lot of systems, for example, Father Bill's system, where I think it's 10 billion, there's 10 billion people that live in that system. And how many pilots are there? Not that many. So to be a pilot that is in charge of our own ship and have the opportunities that we do to make credits the way we do is something that the rest of the population can't afford.
Yeah.
And so it's just this, it's strange to think about, because we're like, oh yeah, I got 10 billion in the bank. But if you think about it, it's like, well, yes, and that could be gone so easily, or this, that, and the other thing. And
yeah, a couple of nights hitting that Lavian brandy and you smash your Corvette into the side of a station, and now suddenly you're just a single billionaire.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I've had a friend that was hanging out, having a good time, and just kept going back. One of the times where probably should have logged out and been like, all right, it's the night. But he went from, I think, having an anaconda back in the day to negative debt on his account and just resetting it. And I was like, right? I was like, oh no, because I remember he had played and we'd picked the game back up, and I'm going, why are you in a Sidewinder? He goes, well,
you see what had happened was.
Yeah, what happened was this ganker came along, and and I'm like, well, why did you keep going out of the station? Well, I just wanted to. And I was like, oh no. It's
so,
like,
So you brought up Lady in Red. This is something I wanted to ask you about. Where did the initial idea for Lady in Red come up? Because I had a very similar idea, and it was kind of rolled into the podcast now. So that's a whole intrepid adventure that I have to somehow flesh out and deal with. But like, where did you get the initial idea for Lady in Red, and like how did you come up with the idea of like implementing that into your Twitch community, into your streaming?
Well, two-part. So I wanted a exploration account that would be interesting while it was exploring. So the initial kind of challenge I put out there to myself was, how can I create a purpose for exploring and a mission for exploring, and maybe certain flashbacks or things that will add content and story to it while she's out in the black. Now, she hasn't gotten out there yet, so that's the challenge right now, is actually getting out there. But I just kind of sat down and went, okay, I know enough from different sci-fi series and this and that, and other people who've done role play, to know that going with, not to say that anybody that does this is wrong, but for me personally, what I find interesting is the kind of everyday person versus, the cast out princess, or, something along those lines. It's like, well, what is it like to be just an everyday person, just an average person who gets the shot to go and become a pilot? What is it like? How much? And I thought a lot about it, and who would she be? And what would her community have to do to pull together the funds to get her the ticket? Because she'd have to travel a long way to get to flight school. And then what kind of person? And Maeve is kind of this very naive, innocent, kind of country bumpkin in a way, because she's from the outer systems, she's not from in the bubble. And there's a lot of things that she kind of stumbles into. She's kinder than a lot of people usually are, which affords her some opportunities, but also gets her into a lot of trouble. And I'm curious to see how she evolves over time. What allowed me to be able to do this was, I actually, a couple years ago, just sat down and wrote a trilogy of kind of a post-apocalyptic utopian novel series, just out of the blue.
Just one day woke up and you're like, I'm going to write a trilogy.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it was a lot more depth to that, but I had basically mocked up the whole world. Being a gamer, right? We have these incredible worlds that we get to be part of. I play a lot of Minecraft, and I've always been a storyteller, and I never thought I could write, because I had all these preconceptions of what a writer was. Someone who had the mastery of commas and perfect English, all this stuff. And so I never thought I could write.
I'm sorry, but the way the funny thing is that is actually, and I'm not trying to interrupt you, but you make a really good point. Is that's what stops a lot of people in these creative endeavors, is they're like, well, I don't even talk that well. Like, my grammar's garbage. Like, how am I going to write? And it's like, no, just write. Just sit down. Just grab a laptop and just start writing. That's all you got to do. You can polish it up later. You gotta get it down there. That was the hardest thing for me to realize as well. So good on you for being like, you know what? Let's just do this.
And then the funny thing is that it ended up being kind of, I would say, a young adult, in that it's not too steamy, but there's some steamy things in there. But I kind of had this feeling that there was the untold story, and everybody that read the first book was like, wait, where's the good stuff? And I was like, all right, fine. I'll write like the version of this where you get all the good stuff, right? And I kept going. And so I wrote another 4 books that was just,
oh my gosh,
the series. And it was so much fun, because for me, I was exploring the story as much as telling it. And it was just this really fun process where I just said to myself, it doesn't really matter if anyone else reads it. I'm having fun. I've fallen in love with these characters, this world, this kind of whole thing. And if anybody else reads it, cool. I mean, I get super stoked when people do, but for me, and I kind of approached Lady in the Red the same way. I had someone say to me, well, you're going to put a lot of time into that. You're going to put a lot of effort into that. And I was like, well, as long as I'm having fun with it, it doesn't matter. It's just a fun way of spending downtime. There's so much time I spend listening to books. Why not just sit there and create the story sometimes? And it's kind of it. I'm glad that you had that same experience, because I don't think I would have ever done that if I hadn't just gotten over that I can't because blank.
Yeah. And that's definitely not exactly writing, though I have done a bit of writing myself, but especially when it came to podcasting. I listened to podcasts for years. And then one day I remember it very specifically. I was raking leaves and I was listening to one of Kevin Smith's podcasts, and someone asked him, how can I get started on a podcast? How can I do what you do? And he was like, just do it, man. And he was like, get a laptop, get a microphone, sit your friends down around a table and hit record. It's that simple. And he was like, there's no magic to it. He was like, there's no artistry, there's no wizardry about this. He was like, it can be as polished or as rough as you want it to be, but you just got to do it. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And so then that was more than 10 years ago, and here I am now. So there's definitely something to be said about coming to that self-realization that you can just sit there and one day just choose, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write this book, or I'm going to make this movie, or I'm going to, whatever that creative thing is you have rattling around in your head. Mm-hmm. And you can just go out and do it. It's really about getting over the, can I, should I, could I? It's no, don't worry about all those. Worry about that when you're done. And then look at the thing you made, and it's yay, I made that thing.
Right. And I think so many of us judge ourselves by where someone is down the line. So we always look at someone who has been successful with podcasting or writing or, content creation. We're like, oh man, I could never do that, because that's not where they started. That's where they are, Yeah. And I think I have to always remind myself, even just in everyday life, seeing where, people are who are kind of later in life. And I'm like, wow, they're so knowledgeable. They're so, humble, this, that, and the other thing. Well, if I had met them in their 20s, it might be a whole different story. And it's because they've lived their whole life and they've had all these different things happen along the way that they are able to be that person that you see them as. And it's hard to remember that, especially in this day and age where the biggest, loudest, most impressive things are the things that catch attention.
Yep. And
everything else seems pale in comparison. It's not. It's worthwhile to pursue those creative ideas and to go after it, because if nothing else, you have fun in the process. Yeah,
and I think there's something to be said about really doing the creative thing for no one but yourself. I have a sister that she's an artist, and she just paints, and she doesn't sell them. She doesn't give them to anybody. She'll just paint a thing, and then she might take a picture of it and post it on Facebook or something like that. But for the most part, she'll just paint the thing and then put it off in a corner and be like, well, that was nice. And then, she'll just get started on the next project. And, she does it for nobody but herself. And there's nothing wrong with that either. A lot of people think that, I have this idea rattling around in my head, but no one's going to listen to it, or, no one would pay to see that. And it's well, who cares? Just get it out of your head. Half the time, that's the best thing you can do for yourself, is just take the idea that you've got rattling around in there that you just can't stop thinking about, and just do it and make it. And then when it's done, you're like, that's pretty cool. I did that thing,
Right? And you can look back at it, and I'm sure she probably pulls out old paintings, is like, oh yeah, I painted that. I forgot about that, Oh yeah, that was neat.
Yeah, I've gotten plenty of, 5-6-year-old paintings as Christmas gifts, and been like, I painted this a couple years back, thought you might like it. And I was like, all right, cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I've definitely gotten packages, and I'm just like, this is one of your old paintings, isn't it? And she was like, I needed to clean out my garage. I was like, all right, that's fine. That's cool. I will hang it up on the wall and display it proudly.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome.
So, okay, getting a little more pointed with some elite questions. Everybody has this. Okay, everybody has this in the game. I'm a victim of it. Every commander is. What is the ship that you hate that you love, and what is the ship that you love that you hate?
Okay, so the first one is a ship that I hate to love.
Yeah.
So
like you know it's bad. You know it is garbage, but you're like, I just like this ship. I don't know why.
I love the Type 9. I love the Type 9. It drives like a freaking warehouse. Well, I freaking love the Type 9. And it's one of those things I can't put into words why, but I'm just like, yeah, I got this Type 9. It's just
because honestly, like it's because it has so much space. You're like, I can do anything in this thing.
Yep. And it just feels like that epitome. And I'm sure if I ever do, so I have not done the Imperial or the Fed rep grind. So I'm sure if I ever get the Corvette, I may fall in love with the Corvette more than the Type 9. But at this point, it's just one of those ships that everybody hates. And I'm like, I love this ship.
So honestly, like I did the Fed grind because I was just sitting there one day and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this because everybody keeps talking about the Corvette. And so I went through and I did the grind. I played, Federal Messenger for like a day and a half. Well, it was like 2 days actually, but got that done. And then I got it. And as soon as I did, I was like, oh, this was 100% worth it. That,
yeah.
Like it's so weird because like it looks like it should turn like a tugboat, and then you fly it and you just do like one round of combat in it, and you're like, oh yeah. This is
well, just seeing my friends that mine, like you have your mining Corvette, Rolthus, who leads our Finance Friday group. He's kind of our prospector. He is so maneuverable in that thing, and I'm like, dang it.
It's crazy, right? You're like, how is something that big so nimble? And it's like, I don't know, but I'm loving every minute of this as you're pirouetting around rocks,
Right? Yeah. And he's just like, pew, 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 all the collector limpets just flying. So this one is one that gets me a lot of flack that I love to hate, which is the DBX. I don't know why. I just can't stand the way it looks. It's just one of those things where I know it's a great ship. Everybody loves it. I can't do it. I just can't. I just, for some reason, it just has that like square beetle. It's just not my aesthetic.
Yeah, it does. It looks like when it's landed, it reminds me of a cricket. It looks like a grasshopper to me.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a grasshopper. And I guess maybe it's because I feel like it's always had this unsaid competition between the ASP and the DBX. So it's like, I'm an ASP person because that's what I flew, before the DBX was, so much of a thing and this and that. And I'm sure it was around back then. I just probably didn't know about it, but it feels like that. I can't cheat on my ASP with the DBX. I'm like,
I'm in a long-term relationship with this ASP. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I worked hard for this ASP. I had to take it all the way to Sajay, and back in my day, there were no neutron boosts. Like
we did the whole thing. We scooped the whole way, and we were happy.
Right.
No, so what's funny is I have a DBX and I have an ASP. And what I can tell you is that while I do agree that both those ships are great for exploration and like you're not going to get better mileage out of anything except for, for an Anaconda. But both of those ships, I hate their engine noise. I hate it with a passion. I don't know what it is. Like to me, the ASP sounds like it sounds like a Yugo. If you've never been in an old European style, like one of those tiny cars that has an engine big enough to run your washing machine, that's what it reminds me of. Like it's just this like it sounds like a dying boat, and I'm just like, oh god, this sounds terrible. And then I hop in the Crate Phantom, and I'm like, this thing sounds like a Corvette. It's amazing.
That's the one I'm aiming for Lady in Red. I'm aiming for her, and everybody's been giving me guff because I'm like, no, I'm sticking with the Sidewinder until she has enough to get that Phantom.
Yep.
I'm not going to bootstrap up. I'm not going to do all of that. I'm going to tough it out in a Sidewinder, and then I'm going for the Phantom.
Yeah, because the thing is with like the right paint job, and if you do if you get the ship kits and stuff like that, that is a sexy ship. I don't care what anybody says.
It makes the best screenshots. I have
it does.
So Machu Picchu, I don't know if you know of Machu Picchu, but he finds like every single water world, Earth, like he's always posting like at least a dozen a day. I'm like, how do you do this? And he has the frontier skin for his Phantom, and it's just like, it's meant to be in screenshots of discoveries. It's
a highly photogenic ship.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
So for me, and I love to share this, is the ship that I love to hate is the Anaconda.
Yeah.
I flew an Anaconda for a while, and I doubled down on my hatred for the Anaconda because that's what I took to Beagle Point. I don't know why I decided that was a good idea, but I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm like, nope, never find this thing again. I can't stand it. No, I don't like it. Yeah, exactly. But the ship that I hate that I love is the keelback.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
Early on in the game, I made my bones trading and getting my money. Before I got my Type 9, I had a keelback named Ponyta, and man, let me tell you, we put some light years behind us, and man, now like I still have it, and I'm like, I'm gonna do something fun with this. So I'm thinking about turning it into a smuggling ship, and I'm gonna do some smuggling role play.
Like a cold running keelback. Ooh.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun little experiment. Everyone's like, no man, just doing the DBX and just do silent running. I'm like, no, I don't want to do it like easy mode. I want to be Han Solo, damn it.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be really fun. Yeah, I've heard good things. I actually have to admit, I have not really flown the keelback much at all. So I'll have to take one out for a spin sometime.
So one thing I will say is if you do like the Type 9 and you like it for, the Lakon cockpit, how it's just, the bubble jutting out there and everything, the keelback has that same field of view where you can just see everything around you and it's a really good view. It's way more maneuverable and it sounds really nice. So it's a nice little, triple threat there for me where I'm like, this is nice to fly.
So it sounds like that the sound of the engines is very key to your ship choice.
Well, yeah, because I boost a lot because I'm impatient, and but also because like the sound design in that game is top notch. There are a lot of things wrong with Elite, like it's not a perfect game, but they nailed sound design.
Oh, have you so I've gotten into just turning up voice sound. So when I'm in the fleet carrier or the stations, you hear the chatter that's going on in the background. Oh, it's so hilarious. It's just so great to hear like some of the acting they've done and then just the minute noises of, for example, the canopy blowing and then the aux. I can't wait for Odyssey for that reason of what they're going to do with the sound design for the on foot stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's just one of those things where it's going to be like, ooh, what did you guys do here?
Like, oh, this is nice. So, okay. So that leads me into my other question, which is what is your like pie in the sky hope for Odyssey? Like something that hasn't been announced, something that could be just completely outlandish. It doesn't matter. Like what is something that you would love for them to put into Odyssey?
This is a hard one because for me, I know it's something that's never, ever, ever, ever probably going to be a thing, but some sort of base building would be awesome. And I would just love that interaction of being able to harvest materials that would get crafted into something that would, that would be something I would love to see. I don't think it's something on their map at all.
No, it's definitely not because and the only reason why, and like I'm not here to be like, the stomper of dreams.
Right.
Like, they're gonna have a hard enough time putting enough settlements out there for everybody to go to. And, just these random settlements on different planets and stuff like that people will be able to go to with tenuous atmosphere that if you were essentially, the old MMO trope of player cities, if they were allowing that, it would be amazing. Like of all the things I've heard people say that they want that, will probably never happen. That's probably the one I could get the most behind because in a lot of earlier MMOs and stuff, they had those kind of mechanics and it was cool because like you made your little village with people, and like, you're like, hey, I have my little hut here and this is where my character lives and my other guild mates or whatever live over in their little huts and we go adventuring together. It's cool. But yeah, if they did that, it would cause such an imbalance because then like you'd have like faction wars for certain planets.
Yep.
And then it's just crimson skies everywhere. It's just complete, total anarchy.
It would be like art
living together.
Yeah, it would be like Ark. There would be people that would have to be on 24/7 to defend their bases, and it would be it would be insane.
Yeah.
And also on the server side and the infrastructure it would take, it would be insane, because a lot of things, like I remember when Rust was in the alpha stage, which was actually really cool, they would wipe the server every so often to just clean off all the junk that would accumulate.
Yeah.
Because it was just it would get so laggy towards the end, because there would just be all this random, nonsensical player built bases and junk stashed away in corners and
giant towers.
I mean, the same thing has happened in Minecraft. I was hosting a direwolf server, and we broke the server because the hosting, like on our own computers, it would have been fine, but the hosting platform couldn't spawn in all the millions of items.
Oh my gosh.
So it literally broke the server in the starting chunk, because there was so much stuff there. It couldn't load anymore. We're like, no,
not my world.
Right? I can play it by myself, but no one else can.
No, like the idea of player cities and the servers keep it up and stuff reminds me of I don't know if you played it back in the day, but I was never really big in EverQuest or anything, but Star Wars Galaxies came out in the late 90s, early 2000s. And
oh no, I never got to play it.
So it was very much like EverQuest in the way mechanically and stuff like that, but you could make player cities. And so you could hop from planet to planet, but a lot of people just stay on their starting planet because they were huge. I did not see all of Tatooine. I went a lot of places, never went and never saw all of it. But I was a part of a pretty big player city, and one thing you could do was you could gather resources from the environment. And so you had these little mining drills, right? You go and set up the mining drill. Well, you'd have to prospect the area. You find a certain density of the material you're looking for, and then you put the drill down, and the drill belongs to you. But another player could come and destroy the drill and take the spot from you.
Oh no.
So it became that thing where you had player cities fighting over areas of land, essentially. And so it'd be these all-out brawls and stuff like that. And there was a point where right before the game ended up shutting down because Sony Online Entertainment bought the company that was hosting it, and they were going to do a bunch of changes, and they ruined it. It was terrible. It was super sad. But before that happened, they did a massive server wipe. And I remember just coming back into the game one day on a Saturday, and then I go and I show back up on Tatooine, and my character is level 1, and I have none of my things. The whole town is gone, and I'm what is going on here? And I'm talking to all the guys in my guild. I'm like, what is happening? What just happened? And they're like, bro, they completely wiped the server. I'm like,
no.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I was heartbroken. I was like, oh my God. I was like, we put so many hours into that town. I was like, they just destroyed 1,000 hours.
Oh no.
So that would be my fear, is
that would happen.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think also the other point that came up a lot around the fleet carrier rollout was that the bubble is already unpopulated, as unpopulated as is, because of the size, and that they didn't really want us to start going off and creating our own little bubbles out. Yeah. Player communities out in the black, because then it would disperse people even further than they already are. And I do see a point of that, but there's part of me that I've even started kind of mapping a specific region of space where I'm like, it's just cool to think about what it would be like to go out and we've talked about this on the Elite Week podcast, which is to go out and have a player initiative to do terraforming. Something like that could play into the way that Elite is built, where you could kind of we truck materials, but it would be interesting if there was a little bit of a mini game involved.
Yeah.
And then you see a planet get terraformed or something like that would be really neat to be like, hey, I helped terraform that planet. But part of me really wants that, hey, this is our little corner of space, if you can get out here, you find us, or you happen across something like that out in the middle of nowhere and you're like, wait, what is this,
There's one inhabited planet in this entire system. It's just you and a bunch of people down on the planet. Hello.
Right. Hey, and it's kind of
Come
no
down and
spoilers,
visit. We have cookies.
Yeah, it's kind of the Expanse type of thing.
Yeah.
Of just this like, what would that be like if suddenly, you have all these various terraformable worlds like we do in Elite, and suddenly there's this mass exodus of people going out, or kind of like Firefly, there's all these civilizations out on the edge because people want to kind of do the gold rush and try and get out there and make their name. And
yeah, and that's kind of what it ends up becoming. And I definitely think that is something that could play really well in the game, especially, like once we have space legs and we're able to go out on planets, if you're not putting some type of stakes into being on that planet, if it's just combat or, just like going around and scanning some plants and stuff like that, it makes it to where it's like, okay, I'm going to do this until I don't have to do it anymore. And then I'm never going to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put something in there that creates some type of like permanence, something that the players can invest in, then you have them engaging with those systems more. I think that's probably one of the things that brought No Man's Sky back from the grave was obviously they did a lot of polishing and a lot of fleshing out of that game from the launch and everything. But when they brought in the base building stuff, that game, it took off in such a crazy way because people were like, sweet, I can get on here with my friends and we can make this little hub on this planet, still go explore the galaxy, but then we can just come back to our little hub and chill out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely something to be said for that.
Yeah. Because, even as is with BGS, well, you can be in a squadron and your squadron can be in control of a system. There's no real benefit or there's no real sense of ownership to it other than, well, I've fought and, I've kind of tweaked this and I've trucked that, and you get attached to a system, but you don't have that sense of like, I built this. This is mine.
We built this station with our own 2 hands.
Right. And it would be kind of neat. And I've talked about this with just like fleet carriers. It would be neat, speaking of sound design, if just simply when you are, and I don't know how hard it would be, it'd probably be really difficult to code this, but when you're the squadron that owns the system, give us a different greeting, right?
Yeah.
Like have the station greet us like, oh, whatever that honorific is, hey, our grand leader or whatever, doesn't have to be something too much like that, but hey, one of our own, or the system authority pulls you over and they're like, oh, sorry, I didn't know it was you, kind of, that would be really neat. Because then
sorry, Judge, sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, right. Like, oh man, because I always love especially when a system's in conflict and you get pulled over by your own authority. It's like, dude, I'm trying to help you right now. Like, let me do the job.
I'm literally one of you.
Like, I made you. Yeah. You wouldn't have been in charge of the system if I wasn't here. So back off, buddy.
Yeah, I could just leave and then you guys won't have a job.
Right. And I do know that they don't want to make like, kingmakers out of everybody. And they want to keep us kind of these kind of ranging every trade kind of, mercs in a way.
Yeah.
So I do like that fact, but it would be kind of neat, especially when you spend $5 billion on a fleet carrier. If they greet you like it's your fleet carrier, like,
yeah.
I paid for this thing. I pay your wages. Come on, guys.
Yeah, you will refer to me as captain from now on.
Right.
Yeah, or admiral or something.
Right. That would be nice. Other than that, I love the game. So.
All right. So final question. And we've actually talked about a lot of games. So it's kind of, you've answered a lot of it already. But when you're not playing Elite, what games do you like to play? Or like what hobbies do you have outside of gaming?
That is a really good question. So I actually, since I've been streaming Elite, I pretty much only stream Elite and then I play other games in my free time. So lately, I've really fallen in love with Eco, which is still in development, and it is kind of like adult Minecraft in a way, in that it was created as a game to teach middle schoolers about ecosystems and human impact and nutrition and things like that. And then they developed it into, and they're developing it into a full-fledged game. And it's a very different game in that, personally, I'm a landscape designer. So they took a lot of time to flesh out the particular plants and species and where they would be and the animals that are in those areas. So you walk into a biome and there's coyotes running around after rabbits, or there's big horned sheep in the desert, and there's prickly pears, and the nutritional value of the foods is balanced based on, it's very rough, like it's very simplified, but some foods have higher fat and higher this, and all that does is it gives you more XP over time if you have a good balance. And everything you do affects the environment. And the overarching idea of the game is there's a comet that's going to hit the planet, and you have to get your tech up to a certain point to build a laser to zap the comet. And
that takes a hard right turn narrative-wise.
right. So that's the thing that's hanging over your head. And you have to do all these things to kind of level up through the tech tree. And each profession needs each other profession. And it's meant to be a collaborative, community-driven game, so that I play it with WKJez, and we've set it on a setting where just the two of us can play, but it can scale up to like a 30-person server where each person is integral, because they can't do this without that person and this person, and everything you do impacts the environment. So the more you mine, the more tailings you get, the more toxic waste you generate, the more CO2 you put into the atmosphere, the more the water starts rising. So you have to kind of balance and make these decisions. Do we just go all out and just, Minecraft style, just
strip mine everything?
Right. And, trees take a certain time to grow, and all this stuff you have to factor in, because eventually you could kill the whole planet and not save it by your own doing instead of the asteroid, which is like, what? This is crazy.
That sounds intense. I need to check this game out. It sounds really cool.
It's really intense. And of course, as someone who plays like Minecraft and things like that, it's, you have this mindset of like, everything that doesn't matter, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, you have to think about it. And
my carbon footprint is huge.
Right, I know. And then it's like, wait. I'm playing a game to get away from. Wait, no. But it's really quite fun. And then I love games like I still will play PUBG all the time. We had some fun games last night that I was just like, this is just so. It's just one of those games you play with friends. You just don't have anything that you have to be doing. Have fun. Go do that. And then I get sucked into games like Banished and Factorio, and
I can't play Factorio anymore. I had to put that game down.
Oh, it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
Like just whole weekends have disappeared, and it's like, wait a second. Like I still haven't even launched the rocket, because I'm a person who starts over games. Like I'll be like, I've learned this much now. Okay, I'm starting over fresh.
Yeah. All right, I've learned from these mistakes. Now I can do it better next time, and then next time, and then next time. Yeah, I definitely made that's why I made the carbon footprint joke, because like I always play it with the enemies on, and so I'm always sitting there like, okay, I can't put out too much pollution, otherwise they're gonna show up, and then I don't have my guns yet, and I need to be more efficient over here. And why is this thing only mining at 60%? What is going on? And pretty soon I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my god, I am so worried about the efficiency of this drill that I wasn't aware of the fact that my southern wall has fallen. Why?
Oh, no.
And it's like, all right, well, we're going to start over. And then you just, like you said, I'll do it better next time, that whole thing. So on that vein though, have you tried Satisfactory?
I have not, because I know how addicting it can be.
Oh man. Yeah.
It takes it to that extra level of like, ooh, this is 3D now. And oh no.
The thing about Satisfactory that, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Factorio for what it is. Like it is efficiency simulator like to the max, and I love it for that. But there's something about being able to build your factory vertically that I'm just like, oh my gosh, these conveyor belts, it's 5 stories of conveyor belts. It's amazing.
Yeah, that right there, that says it all.
Yeah.
5 stories of conveyor. Yeah. That's going to be one where I'm like, all right, I have nothing to do for a week. Okay. It's on sale. I'm going to buy it. I love you guys. I'll see you later.
And the best part about it is like because the one thing that bothered me about Factorio was how like kind of rough in the beginning the multiplayer aspects were, like, you know, pulling people in and stuff like that. But with Satisfactory, you can have 4 people on the same server, and oh man, it gets pretty crazy. Like, because after a while, you're like, oh my god, this factory is like 6 times the size it was when I left to go find this material. What were you guys doing? And it's, you know, it's 4 different people being like, no, we need to have this generator over here, so we're pulling power to this thing. It's like, no, we don't have the fuel for that. We got to do this, and we got to bring this material over here, and then we'll get the coal. It's like, no, we don't have trucks. Why are we getting coal? And like everyone's trying to prioritize, and I'm just sitting over here like, guys, listen, I'm gonna take this miner and get this copper. You guys figure this out, okay?
That's totally my role too. I'm like, I'm just happy if I go set up all the miners. I'm like, I'll just get the materials. You guys figure it out. Yeah, just there you go. Good luck.
All right, have fun.
Have fun with that.
Yeah, I manage people in my real life. I'm not trying to manage people here. I just want to be a worker bee.
I know. I used to have this debate because I used to be kind of the foreman / in-house landscape designer for a landscape construction company. And so I would be like all day just stressed, things going wrong, running like 5 different crews, putting together bids, all this stuff. And I'd get home and that was actually when I picked up Elite. And my friend really wanted to play, I think at the time it was like Civ 6 or no, it was probably Civ 5 or, you know, those real brainy strategy games. And I was like, dude, I'll watch you play it, but I can't because like my brain just needs to be on vacation. Like I don't know. My brain does not need to be engaged. It needs to go on vacation, and I'll just mindlessly go explore or mine or truck or, you know, like whatever it is.
That's the thing I love about Minecraft is like I can just like have a rough day at work and I just go in and be like, all right, today I'm gonna grow some crops. And then you dig your little garden and you plant your crops and you're like, that was nice. And like, you don't have to think about it. There's no like,
feels so productive.
Yeah, exactly. And it's real simple. The music's really mellow. It's just life is good.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Well, so you do have something coming up soon, a charity event that is happening. So why don't you take a minute to plug that and give us the details on that?
Yeah, so we are going to be doing an event to raise money for One Tree Planted, which is a nonprofit that helps reforest areas. And the reason I chose them is not only because they reforest all over the world, the rainforest, New Zealand, Africa, but they locally reforest areas that have been affected by the wildfires. And I'm in an area that up until about 3 or 4 years ago never had consistent wildfires, maybe every 100 years. In the last, like just this last year, we lost 10 million acres of trees.
Oh, gracious.
So yeah, and of course, on a personal level, I help people rebuild their lives and their houses, but the animal and plant lover in me looks at these barren hills and mountains and thinks, wow, that's a lot of habitat for animals and different plants that you're not going to get back. So I'm really happy to support an organization that is coming back in and starting that replanting, because it's a huge task that in a way is so daunting. But if we start today, in 20 or 30 years, it's going to start to help heal some of these areas and hopefully make them more resilient in the future, because this is obviously something we're going to be facing a lot coming up. So
yeah. So what was it saying is the wisest man plants seeds of trees he knows he'll never sit under the shade of.
Right, exactly. So that is going to be on the 12th, and the donation link and the campaign is already up and active. So if anybody wants to contribute ahead of time, they can. We're going to be doing it's not even a timed event, because I do not know how long it's going to take us. We are going to head from the bubble to the void hearts, which are about 20,000 light years away. We are the kind of idea, it's a weird idea. We are making ships that have min-maxed cargo to jump range. So we are going to be transporting as many fish because our community has this joke about the chubs, which is a type of fish. And so we're going to be taking this mass exodus of fish to save them and take them to distant water worlds. And whoever finds the furthest away water world before someone gets to the Void Hearts gets to win the race. And it's going to be kind of just this fun thing where it's going to be ships that we don't normally go out exploring in. It's going to be kind of neat to go out in mass. And we're going to have a fleet carrier that is going to jump out with us so that it'll be out there for a couple days and then it'll jump people back. So they don't have to suicide winder home and they'll have an easy way home. And it'll just be it'll be a fun event in and of itself, but it's going to be for a really good cause. So I'm really excited about it. And did I mention that that's on February 12th at 4 Pacific Standard Time?
Yes. February 4th. You said
February 12th.
February 12th, 4 Pacific Standard.
Yep.
All right. I will make sure to make a note of that.
Yeah, it's the Friday before Valentine's Day. That's the easiest way to remember.
Fantastic. Well, I will definitely be there. And I'll tell you what, I think it is only fitting that you do this event in a keelback. And that way we can see the real world changing chops of the keelback.
No. That's you that's gonna do the keelback. I have my Orca. My Orca is my luxury cargo transport.
You're gonna be riding out there in style.
Exactly. I mean, it looks like a fish, so
yeah, that's true. I mean, you're transporting fish in fish. It's very meta.
Yep, fishception
indeed. All right. Well, Boss Lady, thank you very much for coming on. This has been an amazing interview and has been just really great talking to you. And I look forward to coming over to your stream on the 12th of February at 4 Pacific Standard Time. And yeah, just thank you very much for your time and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. And this has been a lot of fun. It's obviously we both love the same things and it's been fun to talk about them. So
yeah, fantastic. Well,
awesome.
With that, we will be transitioning over and we will be right back.
All right. Man, I tell you what, that just so much fun. Just sitting down and being able to talk, not just Elite, but games and just life in general and things like that. Boss Lady has so much to offer. And of course, I encourage everybody that is even mildly interested in what she's got going on in her stream to head over to her Twitch and to check it out. I will put links in the show notes to her Twitch channel. And man, I tell you what, it is nothing but a good time over there. So you definitely need to go and check it out. I also really hope that you enjoyed this season 2 premiere of Switch in Space and look forward to what's coming next. It's going to be a wild year, folks. It's going to be amazing. I am super hyped for it. And I mean, listen, 2020 sucked for a myriad number of reasons. 2021 is starting out rough as well, but it still has the potential to be amazing and to really have a light at the end of the tunnel. And Switch in Space isn't going to solve all of the world's problems, but you know what? It's at least a nice little spot to kind of put them aside for a little while. And I hope we can at least provide you that. So that is going to do it for episode 1 of season 2 of Algorab AM. Again, thank you very much for listening. Also, if you want, you can come on by and stop by Sidewinder Syndicate. We have a Discord. The squadron is always taking on new members, and we have a great time. And it is an awesome organization to get on Elite with and to play the game. Also, we are streaming now, and you can head over to binary_gamer to check out the stream there. I'm streaming everything from Elite Dangerous to roguelikes. Every once in a while, I get real froggy and I play Fortnite, but it's a really good time over there. I definitely suggest you come on over and check it out and hang out, and we can just talk Elite or talk games or just talk. That's fine too. So with that, thank you very much for listening. I hope you have an amazing week. Fly dangerously, Commanders. 07